Good afternoon. My name is Dale Rodriguez, and this is Flabonga Monthrothacube. And with me today, I've got my co-host,
Tony Stevenson.
And we've got our awesome guest,
Marcus Batson.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Now, Marcus, you've been on the show before, so you know the score. You know what you're here for. But the last time you were on the show, you didn't have Tony with you. It was just me and you.
Absolutely.
And Tony adds something. He adds like an umami-ness, a depth of flavor. He's like the essence of spaghetti bolognese that the show needed. He's elevated the dish. He's
got a notepad down there somewhere as well, which I think we're taking it to new heights of planning.
Bro's taking it seriously.
Yeah.
So that said, I'm going to be really lazy. I'm like, Tony, let's let you kick this off. You want to ask Marcus some questions? Do you want to go serious? Do you want to go silly? Like, how are we doing this?
I'm going to steal the Rogan intro, which is just, have you had a good week?
Yeah, so far, definitely. I was away last week, so I've been trying to dig myself out of my inbox and catch up with a few bits. But holidaying. Yeah, trying to get some pictures for LinkedIn, that kind of thing.
The important stuff. Yeah.
I'm going to call out Will Rush as exactly that this morning, and he was there with his coffee and his pastel donata. And
he loves that photo, doesn't it? Yeah. That blame in Portugal is superb.
It is. I've been a number of times, but I've been twice to the same place, which is very, very unusual for my wife. But we found this like amazing little sort of like fishing-y, towny thing called Sesimbra, which is about 40 minutes from Lisbon on the coast, and it's just like a really nice place to go and chill out. So the first time we went, it was absolutely like just blistering, like unseasonably hot the whole time. And then the second time we went, which was the exact same week, like the last week, it was like the half-term week, but it was like the last week before it goes into season, so it was really cheap for a really nice place. Absolutely hammered it down. We had one nice day of weather. Did see some dolphins, but apart from that, it's just.
Oh, blimey. Yeah, so I used to go to the Algarve quite a lot with my family and stuff like that, which is quite nice. Got the little old town. It's very kind of British friendly, if you like, as an area. Yeah. But Lisbon is, I went there with the guys over at Zama not long after I first joined, and back in Jan, actually. And it was really nice.
We're going to kick off with
speaking of Zama, just got one very important question. What is Zama? So, what is it? I know what it is, but for people who may not know you or you mentioned it, what is it?
It's an AML software for accountants to try and solve that problem of a very disruptive and sort of chopped up process that often happens in firms.
Next question. What's AML?
Anti-money laundering. So stopping those pesky money launderers.
Why is it important?
Well, it's a regulated thing. So if you don't do it, you get told off pretty harsh. At least for accountants sort of things. And I'm sure ethically there's a lot of things I can point to, but more so that it's kind of mandated by every supervisory body going. So every firm either knows about it or very quickly will when they come around for a visit.
Cool. Just got to jump into the comments real quick. Hey, Kirsty, thank you for joining us.
Hey,
Sam Green, thank you for joining us as well. Thank you guys for supporting the show, by the way. Right, sorry, Tony, I cut you off. You're about to say something probably exquisite.
I think it was just like one of our silly questions, which is early for this because it normally seems to come in later in the show. But where is your favourite place that you have visited in the world?
Ooh,
travel wise.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Why are you laughing?
Because my brain went somewhere stupid.
Surely not.
Yeah.
Never. Surely.
Probably because it was probably the furthest I've been, and I'm a typical Brit, and probably as far as I go before I was with Kaylee was with Spain and Portugal. Was probably Jamaica. Went there for my 30th, which was brilliant. Food's great, weather's even better. So it was really enjoyed that. So I'd probably say Jamaica.
I've been to Jamaica. I went for my honeymoon, which was really cool. Before we were parents, we arrived and there was like a phone party in the resort on the day that we arrived, which was quite cool. And then they had all the usual sort of troop of people that manned the resort, and they had like a beer chugging competition. And my wife and I both won our respective categories of beer chugging, and had several people come up to us throughout our holiday going, "Oh, you guys are the ones that won the beer chugging competition."
Photographs and stuff.
Yeah, I was quite proud. Like by Laura's own admission, her competition was quite weak, but my competition was pretty strong. I had this Canadian guy, and he must have been like 6'6", 25 stone, looked like he could chop a beer for like just the easiest thing ever, and I beat him, and I was so proud. And the final round was like you had to chop 2 beers, and then you had to swipe the beer in the middle of the table, and that was like if you swiped the beer in the middle of the table, then you won, kind of thing. So you had to finish them the first 2. So I smashed my 2 beers and then swiped it. And they hadn't told me I wasn't supposed to drink the final one, but I assumed you were because it was a beer chugging competition. So I finished it off and then jumped in the pool, much to the round of applause from what was probably just my wife and maybe the Canadian guy that I'd beaten in the previous round.
What beers was it? Because I know that the typical American beers they tend to back at parties is more like Bud Light and quite weak beers.
Yeah, these 3% horrible beers.
Yeah, so I actually know it was just it was generic resort beer, like that same kind of like all beers trend, all that. There's like same kind of non-premium lager that just trends to basically the same lager all around the world. Is that standard, like in
probably a Carling? I think that's the brand that gets out there. It's cheap. It doesn't taste particularly great, but if you're thirsty,
it has to be ice cold. It's difficult.
Absolutely, it was gone. So yeah.
Right, speaking of beers, though, actually, do you guys have like a preferred or favorite beer or beer style?
Not really. I quite like a craft ale every now and again, but I feel like it makes me a little bit ill if I have too many of them, more than a lager. But things like Foster's and Carling and bits, I haven't got the palate for those sorts of beers. I'm more of like a Heineken. I'd rather have less and stronger rather than more and weaker.
Yeah, as I've got older, my beer consumption has tailed off. I think that I like a sort of Peroni or some more of a premium one that's like you said, like you can drink less of it for the same impact. But like Guinness is probably my beer of choice. Nowadays. Yeah, it sits differently with me. I could drink a bit more of it. But yeah, I don't know. I struggle with knowing really what I can't find. I think it's wine. Maybe it's wine. I don't know, but I can't really find. So I don't not drink. I drink way less than I used to. I left without some reason to drink, like a wedding or something. I don't drink very much at home at all.
Yeah,
I never really.
The same. I don't drink indoors at all. If I do, it's like if I go out for a curry.
Indoors, I like that.
Yeah, so if it's in the back garden, it's fine. But
do you have a terrace? Because I know it's January, but I'd like to have a cobra with my.
Yeah, I've got a deck chair in the front garden that I sit in for that. But no, I'd better do it nowadays. But it's if I do, it has to be something that's slightly stronger with a bit of taste.
What about you, Dale? Do you drink beer?
I don't drink that much.
Big on the carbs, are you?
I think so. I do like beer. I don't drink that much of it because of the carbs. So when I do have that nice little treat, it will be a darker beer. So again, a Guinness or a nice porter, or like a German Dunkel, nice dark beer with lots of flavour. And like Marcus said, again, I'd rather a stronger beer, 2 or 3, and that's it, and then I'm done.
What's that place in Canterbury, Dale, where it's got, is it the Foundry or something like that, where it's got all the nice beers? Yeah.
They do amazing beers. They brew their own. They make their own spirits. It's all good stuff.
Yeah, I remember going there when I worked in that West, and they had like a beer in there. It was something like 11%. It was the thickest tasting thing you've ever had in your life, but it was real deep, rich, sort of like reddy brown color, and it was like 11 or 12%.
Many moons ago. But before Brewdog was like super famous, I went to Newcastle for a work, and this is like over a decade ago. And there's a Brewdog pub in Newcastle, and they had a 21% beer that they served in a martini glass, and it cost £20 to buy because when you bought the beer, you had to have the charcuterie board with it. Like they'd sell you the whole thing as an experience. It was delicious and it was thick. But it was awesome.
1%.
Yeah. It was just super strong, super flavoursome. It's like a Marmite savoury. I don't know, really nice. It was
you got some bread and you.
It was thick for sure. It was thick for sure, but it was actually quite tasty. Like if you generally supped it or sipped it and had your meat and cheese, it was good.
No, that's nice.
That sounds like an interesting experience. I'm not sure.
Looking at the age now, though, with everything like that, just sounds like really bad heartburn.
All right, we need to bring it back to business because this is a business-focused podcast, and all we've done is talk about beer and traveling, which is, well, that's fine.
9 minutes, 37 seconds well spent, I think.
Yeah. So we talked about anti-money laundering, and that's the service that you offer. And I'm going to tee you up for a nice sales pitch. Why should I, as a bookkeeper or an accountant, work with Zama? What do I get out of it?
It's a good question. So our approach to AML is probably more on the sort of integrated side, being free agent, being topical for that. But because AML is a part that's often scattered across the whole of a firm, and ring fencing that in a corner in a piece of software that's not connected to anything makes it really hard for you to bed that into your processes. Where there's a lot of things happening in the firm, you've got client work to meet, you're always going to prioritize that. So busy periods throughout the course of the year, you're naturally going to drop things like AML. That information ages really quick. So if we can start to bring it into those processes through integrations from the point of onboarding or even annual events with clients, which makes it a lot easier for it to scale. And that's how we're pretty different to the others.
Okay. Trickier question. Why does AML matter to a business owner? Like, you've explained that bookkeepers and accountants have to do it for regulatory purposes.
Yeah.
Why would it matter to me, so-and-so, whoever owns their business, looking to work with an accountant?
I think it sort of demonstrates trust. I think if you've got good controls in place, there's an element of that you wouldn't necessarily just have really good controls in AML and everything else is weak. You tend to have that approach across the whole firm. So I think from a business owner, there's some sort of reassurance there. If a firm's taking it seriously, that they're probably taking everything else quite seriously too.
Okay. And this might step on Tony's toes because it's kind of a thing, but you mentioned integrations. Like, how does the AML process integrate? So if you could dumb it down, explain to someone who doesn't know what AML is, which you've already kind of done. Yeah. What do you mean by integrations? Where's it connecting to?
So primarily practice management software, because I think a lot of firms nowadays are trying to find that central source of truth. I feel like it's always been a mission that it's been really hard to solve. And everyone's trying to create dashboards and stuff. That's really cool, but the more dashboards that are created, you almost make the problem worse. So trying to bring all that into a central system like Carbon, Engager, there's tons of out there that integrate into Zama. Use that central point where you can then have visibility on things, which often if it's separate, that's quite hard. Or one poor person's often lumped with the whole thing. And you can also then embed it into things like your workflows and processes. So one of the things we do with Carbon, for example, is that once you create a risk assessment in Zama, it creates a whole set of work items in Carbon so it can be managed through to completion in the platform. You can assign it to team members and stuff as well. So it's a bit more of a collaborative thing, stopping it only happening if the MLRO opens the lid.
Cool. And I'm going to ask what many people might consider a dumb question, but ask anyway. How would Zama work with something like Free Agent, or do they sit too far apart in the workflow they wouldn't really touch each other? It's
a really good question. So from an integration perspective, the reason we've partnered with Free Agent is not for the workflow stuff. It's more around the kind of financial insight that you need as part of that really just contextual understanding of a client when you perform a risk assessment. So a lot of it is around sort of how's the business trading? Is it in line with what you expect? Are there any anomalies in that? I think having that accurate information come through into a place where you're reviewing the client, not needing some sort of like FX trader screen setup to work out what the client's doing, is a much easier way to do it. So it's a very simple integration right now. I'm sure it will continue to work on that, but it's just a trading performance over time. And that'll then soon make its way into risk assessments. And the reason we're doing that is that when you complete a risk assessment, it takes a little snapshot of all that data at that time. So when you have to think back 2 years ago and justify your workings of why you said that about the client, you've got a real nice moment in time snapshot of what the client was like.
Cool. What we'll do is we'll chop that up. We'll message your boss, and they'll be happy that you said all that really cool stuff, and you can use it for marketing material. You're welcome, Marcus's boss. You're welcome.
Thanks. It's coming to my annual review as well. So
fantastic.
And we did it all
bad look
interrupted as well, didn't we? So it will be a nice little clip it for socials. I was just going to add some stuff to that, which I think was quite cool from a free agent perspective. Was that so we'd been out to market and spoken to a bunch of like the AML providers. So like shout to Kev Lord at FirmCheck, who I used to work with for many years, and we kind of got the same sort of message back, which was that like we don't really need to integrate with you because we've got the practice management integration is where our source of truth is. And actually what then Jacques reached out to me and said, look, we want to explore this idea of like augmenting that information with something that doesn't typically end up in the practice management software, which is the financials, right? And actually if we could bring that in as an extra tab into the workflow, then suddenly you've got a view of kind of like what's happening, in the day-to-day from the P&L and balance sheet perspective, which is quite exciting and an interesting expansion of that opportunity. And I think you're right. Like I always remember like being back in practice and seeing a particular set of accounts for a particular business, and like you sort of triggering in your head, like how can that thing work with those numbers, that just doesn't look possible for that business type of thing. And, raised it and it was dealt with in an appropriate fashion because it was just a piece of information I was missing. But like, yeah, it is interesting when you get to be able to see those numbers, you can actually start to piece it together from a real life perspective as well. So yeah, I think it was quite cool. And I think that it's been well received as well. And you guys seem to be just continually, steadily chipping away at the market in terms of presence and and the numbers keep ticking upwards. So yeah, it's cool.
Nice. That was too serious for it. I thought Dale was waiting to just hard left.
It looks like Dale was like looking at his notepad as if to sort of work out which of his silly questions he's going to ask. I think maybe we should give him...
Since you've joined, Tony, I'm taking it more seriously. I do have a notepad and I've got some silly questions and some real questions I'm referencing. I'm taking it more seriously. Yeah, that's right.
I like the way I've given it the impression that I would take it more seriously.
Hey, let's ask the audience, people watching, does Tony seem to take this more seriously than I do? Way more professional than I am, that's for sure.
No way. Sure. This is more natural.
Well, I just thought of this one. So I call this the boy band look, like, because this is what it looks like. If we were going to cover a boy band song, we need to agree between the three of us which boy band would it be, and maybe which song would it be? Because I feel like, from my background and Marcus's background, it's got to be some kind of like R&B-esque kind of boy band, right?
Yeah, I mean, Boys to Men come to mind straight away. I feel like End of the Road vibes. Was it there? Aren't they bald? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. This
is like a proper 90s flat top. That's a proper like Boys to Men.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure what else. I'm not really. I haven't got the energy for a One Direction sort of thing.
I don't think. Yeah, like K-pop's not going to be our thing, is it?
No, I haven't got the choreography for that. So
I mean, I don't speak Korean either. So
no, that was me neither.
One of the biggest factors. All right. Well, what about maybe like an NSYNC, like a more modern R&B, like pop R&B? Could we do that?
Still a lot of energy though, isn't it? I think that choreograph, that NSYNC choreograph, is pretty impressive.
Okay, so you want something maybe a little bit older, a little bit slower, maybe like New Edition, maybe something like that.
Mm? Yeah, good shout.
But there's less dancing around. Yeah, all right.
What's your music taste, man? What's your go-to genre?
Me?
Tony.
Sorry, Tony.
Me. Do you know what? Like, music's something that sort of faded out of my life over the years. I'm not a huge music person. It's definitely the headlines. I don't know, really. Like, we had this question last week, and I said the thing I was listening to at the moment was Miles Smith. Maybe that's partly because he's from like 4 miles away from where I live, and then maybe that's biased me slightly. Yeah, and I was pretty upset to not secure Oasis tickets, because Oasis are my all-time faves, I have to say.
I've got my power back.
Yeah, last week it took Dale's power away from him, so I
wasn't allowed to switch screens last time. It was very annoying. Yeah. And I wanted to do it, and now I'm overdoing it. Sorry. Apologies, viewers and guests. All right, another silly question. I think the thing is, having guests on multiple times, right? They may have answered these questions already. Like, I know for sure I asked you the biscuit question, but we're going to skip that one. Marcus, one fictional character from a TV show or movie that you could punch in the face and get away with it. No judgment, no nothing. Who would it be?
That's a good question. It's got to be someone really irritating. So it's got to be something like a Woody Woodpecker or something.
Yeah.
Because that after a while gets quite grating. Or something like, only because she always got in the way of things, was Dee Dee from Dexter's Lab.
I love that cartoon.
It is a great cartoon.
Yeah.
But yeah, something like that. I think that would be probably those. They're quite irritating characters for the most part.
You're right, and I'm kind of with you on Dee Dee, because if it's a fictional character, technically what you're saying is you'd punch a little girl.
You're quite tall in comparison to Dexter, though.
Oh, she was very tall, but she was like 10 years old.
I don't think that was confirmed in the show. I'm not sure I heard that.
Sorry, I'm painting you in a bad light. That's not fair. Tony, I've asked you that question. Who you'd punch? You can get away with, like, fictional character.
Yeah, and I don't think I had an answer, and I'm still thinking about it, to be honest, mate. It still whirs around my brain most days to make sure that I choose. You've
got more important things to think about. It doesn't wear around your brain at all.
Genuinely does.
Got a wife, kid, career. Like, this is the least of your concerns.
It's not the least of my concerns. I need to answer this question so I haven't come up with the right answer to it yet, if I'm honest. Because every time I sort of try out a different one, I'm like, that's not it. I could have a bigger impact here than that. So yeah,
I think it's got to be saying that can take a Tony punch as well, like a Pokemon Snorlax or something that would need to be sizable enough to take that blow.
Yeah. Like it's exactly. I don't know. Still working on it.
Thank you for humouring me, Marcus. Much appreciated.
That's right.
Do you look at those things though that do whir around your brain? So like this is it's a slightly off-topic example, but it serves the purpose. It's like my wife and I always talk about like when you go on holiday and you get people that are in like holiday mode and they just kind of like blindly walking out in front of cars and getting attacked by seagulls and just, like just generally doing things that they wouldn't do if they were like kind of like on it and, just operating in normal life. And I've always been looking for the phrase that encapsulates that concept. And my wife said to me a few days ago, was somebody who was demonstrating this behavior and she went, "Oh, they've got their holiday hat on." And I was like, yes, thank you. That is the phrase I have been looking for the last decade of my life, if not more, to summarize the people wandering around blindly, not paying attention.
Does that also include those people that go into shops with their no t-shirt on, which I feel is like something that I don't do if I'm on holiday, because you wouldn't do it in your own. You go and buy a drink from like a supermarket without your top on.
Yeah,
like on holiday, that's like a thing that you do because you think it's really hot. But in the UK, you would never do that.
That is correct. Yeah, you wouldn't go into Sainsbury's. You would expect to not be allowed into Sainsbury's if you didn't have your shirt on, wouldn't you? I would expect somebody to stop me from going in and saying, "That's strange. What are you doing?"
The things that were around in my head, the random thoughts are, who is the first to have done something? And I got two examples. Who was the first person that somehow managed to convince an undomesticated cow to steal or borrow its milk? Bearing in mind, cows are like a year and a half, like a ton and a half. Like which brave person from how many hundreds or thousands of years ago went, "I'm gonna suck that cow titty, and it will sustain me." And the other one is, again, this one's more says, I don't know if you guys are familiar with ackee and saltfish. It's a dish from Jamaica, right?
Yeah.
Or the Caribbean. Ackee, unless it's cooked properly, is poisonous. Who was the first person that tried it, died, and then who was the second person went, "If I heat this up, it might be okay"?
No, I've got this. Yeah, is that true?
Yeah, Ackee's really, really poisonous. It's really toxic. Like if you eat like,
I think kidney beans are the same, right? Like
kidney beans, super toxic. Yeah, but someone went, "I'm gonna heat this up, and now we're safe." After seeing other people die, because I assume other people tried it and felt sick or maybe died, and someone went, "No, you know what? Add some fire, that'll sort it out."
It's the same with like I've forgotten the name of the fish, but the fish that
fugu, pufferfish.
Yeah, right, and it's poisonous apart from like that bit. And if you
two pieces, yeah.
And like who found that out? How did you? Why did you? We'll just leave it alone. We'll just leave it alone. There's loads of other nice fish.
Yeah.
So, like I can't believe that somebody was in that point of survival where they had to eat that particular fish, and then decided that they were going to somehow work out. Like it's like trying to just like.
See, Sam's with me on Dale's cow point, who then decided to recreate that with goat.
Yeah,
Thank you, Sam, you're green.
Or with an almond, right? Or an oat. Oat, can you give me your milk, please? Yeah.
I almost hope that like a little bit of milk fell on the floor, and they were like, "I wonder what that is." And they tried it there rather than trying to extract it through other means.
Yeah, but then after they did that, someone went, "I need to milk that cow." Who'd never milked a cow before. Do you know what I mean? Like someone
you knew what it was at that point, though. You knew
that. And again, like this is like we've got domestic cows which have been bred to be like docile. I imagine like an ancient cow would be like, "Nah, you're not having my calf's milk."
Have you seen? There's the trend doing the rounds at the moment. I can't remember the guy's name. It's Ashton Hall. And there's like the morning routine one where he's like,
he wakes up at 4 a.m. and like puts his face in ice, all that nonsense. Yeah.
Have you seen someone's done a cow version of that one? Honestly, it's one of the best things I've ever seen. I'm going to dig it out. It is absolutely incredible. And like,
making a note. Do I Google search cow version Ashton Hall? Is that what?
Possibly. I'll see if I can dig it out. But yeah, absolutely brilliant. Like, had a million likes and worth every single one of them. It's just so good. Do you say about cows? They're basically like giant dogs. they're really like I've got a lot of energy, a lot of personality when you actually get to know them.
Yeah. So a family friend owns a small holding, like maybe half an hour drive from me, and they raise cows, not a huge amount. And calves are just like puppies. They don't realize that they weigh half a ton, and they'll jump around on you. They'll try and hug you. They'll stand on your feet by mistake. They just don't know they're heavy, and they're like puppies. It's insane.
That's kind of cute and weird. Cute.
I do like that concept of like who did this the first time though. That is something that has entered my brain as well.
Yeah. Also, who figured out what we should eat and what we shouldn't eat? Like, we don't eat seagulls. I can only assume that means someone back in time went, not very tasty or not worth the effort. You know what I mean? There's probably not a lot of meat on those, is my guess.
I sometimes think that similar idea of like if you were an extraterrestrial viewing our behavior as a species, that there would be some quite stark anomalies of like why we do certain things and why we don't do other certain things, why certain things are morally reprehensible to us, but other things that appear to be on the face of it with no sound on, like exactly the same, but we don't do them, but we do them. Like, you know, it is. Yeah, I do think it would be a slightly odd viewing experience, right?
Just realised we've gone off topic. This is my bad. Sorry.
No, it's all right. I'm trying to think of things that are weird stuff that we do that.
Mr. Batson.
Yes.
I'm going to have to ask you a really boring business-related question, a very topical one, because everyone talks about it.
Yep.
AI in anti-money laundering. What do you think the impact will be on delivering the service, or AI disrupting AML checks and such?
Yeah, good question. I think it's probably worth thinking about it like any application of AI. I think it's where you can't solve it through anything else, and AI is the best solution at that time. I think a lot of people kind of prioritize AI above every other way of solving a problem. And you see a lot of cases where you've got like chatbots that you can speak to and stuff, which sounds and looks kind of cool. But if a button takes you half the time than typing out a question in a chatbot, maybe the button's the better solution than the AI bot. So I think sometimes it's about, does it solve the problem that I can't solve otherwise? And does that therefore enhance the user experience? There's probably loads of things to consider as part of that. There's a lot of manual lifting in terms of like migrating data, and there's a lot of documents and bits that you use. So AI can definitely be used for extracting information out of documents. So because no one likes typing out a passport number, very simple. We see it all the time in accounting, from HubDoc to Dex to whatever. That's a very simple application that we've got in the platform of that. But aside from that, I think FirmCheck have got an AI tool, from what I understand as well. They've got one that's kind of sorts documents and bits in their platform too. So there are some quite good applications coming out. But I think I'm glad that it's sparingly, as opposed to just doing AI for effectively a marketing campaign, which I think in a lot of cases is what you see.
Yep, AI for AI's sake.
Yeah, in a lot of cases.
I think that that seems pretty like a sensible assertion of things. I just feel like I've got quite into AI when, like, obviously ChatGPT was launched and that sort of generational shift happened, and then I've just kind of, I wouldn't say down tools on it, but like I haven't put the effort in, the yards in to get comfortable with using it beyond like interacting with it as in a sort of conversational fashion. I was listening to Aaron and Johan on the Ask the Accountant, and Aaron shared this story last week, I think it was, which I will recount and I'll shorten it slightly, but basically they'd done their grid walk, and he wanted to do some editing, and by his own admission, Aaron said, like, my editing skills are not like, I'm not a professional editor, so I sort of wanted to do this thing which I thought would take me quite a long time. So I thought, I'll try and see if AI can do it. And he's like, I banged the full video in and gave it like some fairly lengthy prompts about what I wanted it to do, and it kind of went, yeah, that's fine, but I'll need some time to work on it. And then went away. He said, I need 24 hours or whatever. So he said, okay, fine. Yeah, no problem. Come back. Comes back, asks, where is it? And it goes, oh, sorry, I need a bit more time. So it's like, okay, fine. And then to give it a bit more time. And then he was like, right, you've had enough time now. Like, can we get it? Oh, yeah, sorry. Like, kind of prepares the file. And he's like, the file download wouldn't work, I think was what he said. So he tried to download, then he asked for it in a different format, and the file still wouldn't work. And he said he was just getting really annoyed and frustrated with it. And it's had 36 hours by this point to do the thing it said it was going to take him 24 hours to do. And then he basically asked it, have you actually done this? And he basically went, no, I haven't done it. and I can't do it either. I don't have the ability to be able to do this, but I wanted to go through the process like I was doing it to basically to make you happy.
Yeah, that's a weird thing.
It killed me. I was like, because I had a similar experience with the spreadsheet. I was trying to get it to build, and it built it. And then I went back to it and was like, oh, I'd like you to make some changes. And it just got into this this overthinking loop of like not being able to deliver it. And every time I said, where is it? And they'd be like, oh, I'm really sorry. Yeah, you're right. Got to get on that now. And I was like, you've already, and then in the end, it basically went, I can't do this. And I was like, but you've already done it. Like you already built the spreadsheet. All I've asked you to do is swap 2 columns around. It already existed. I've already downloaded it.
Could you imagine if that was a person? Could you imagine how frustrating that would be? You'd be like, intern or junior, why would you behave in such a way? That would be ridiculous.
I used to have this guy that I used to work with. I won't name him. He won't be listening, but it was just so funny. And he just had this incredible attitude to work, whereby this was back when I was in practice, and I would say to him, I had to say to him, please, will you bring a pad and write notes, because he used to come for like a sort of fairly lengthy discussion about me giving him some like numerical work that he had to do to prepare something for some sort of tax comp or whatever. And he'd just sit there and not take any notes, not really ask any questions, and just go, yep. And then what would happen would be, he would get to, and I'd given a deadline, like I tried to do all the, the things you need to do, making sure it was clear and make sure the deadline was explained why it needed to be done and why it was important and whatever. And then he'd just come back to me and just be like, not quite throw it on my desk, but like he'd walk up to me and just be like, I've sent it to you. I don't know if it's right or not. I don't think it is. I couldn't finish it. So like, there you go. Literally. And I was just like, and I used to always sort of think like, he just hates tax as much as I do. So like, it wasn't too hard on him. He's just like in the wrong seat. He still does it now. He worked for a big 4 firm for a while. Like he's a smart guy, but he just had this incredible, like, maybe it was me. I don't know if it was me. But
I'm jealous.
Like,
how did he get away with that? How can he continue to work in such a way? That makes no sense.
So long as well.
Yeah. He did. And this might probably give away who it was, but like he also did commute daily from Sheffield to St Albans to go to work. Yeah,
that's a long way to go.
Oh yes, that's like a 4 a.m. megabus. Yeah.
Blimey.
Yeah. He did. Incredible. He did it for quite some time as well before he eventually sort of got a place local. But
Marcus, have you had a similar experience? Anyone you've worked with that's been a completely different way of working to you, or not quite grasped how you work?
Definitely not to that degree. I definitely benefit from working with different types of people who work quite differently to the way that I do. Like, for example, like Jacques, for example, at Zama is very kind of methodical and process driven, and his way of thinking is quite different to mine. Where mine's a little bit more kind of all over the shop. But so that definitely helps. I definitely got a lot of benefit from that. Luckily, I've not had situations where I've been given work in such a state. But Jacques and now that other people I work for too have been quite extracted a few benefits out of them and applied it to myself.
Luke Farron jumping into the comments. I think he's a little bit behind. Luke
Slightly
Farron,
behind.
You mean you don't buy your Tesco meal deals topless? Well, he might not have joined when it started live, so he might be like 5-10 minutes after. So Luke, thank you for watching. No, most people don't buy the Tesco meal deals topless. Nobody wants to see that from me. I can guarantee you. I'm not in shape at the moment. I'm not beach ready. No one wants to see that. Random question for you guys that came up as we were discussing working with people. I thought about personality profiles and all that kind of stuff. Have you guys done those? Which ones have you done? And are you willing to share which personality profiles you are?
Yeah, so I have, not for a long time. I've done Strength Finder, which was really good, but I can't remember what's that spat out. And then we used to do DISC at a previous employer, and I was like a D, but close to the I. So it's like a predominantly D, but quite close to the I. Which was a driver predominantly.
Yeah, I've done the HBDI one. I couldn't tell you what that stood for. But there is a very similar one where you basically get quadrants that you kind of fall into, not necessarily exclusively. You might have a couple that you're stronger in than others, which is typically more like, are you a people person? Are you more based on stats and numbers? Are you more big picture, or are you more focused on process and planning? And you kind of sit within those sort of quadrants. I was naturally more on the bigger picture and stats and numbers. I quite like looking at the longer big picture stuff. That's why I quite like startups. So you got that almost got that long-term view of where it could go, and that's what kind of drives me a little bit.
Cool. What about you, D?
So I think I've done Myers-Briggs before a couple of times. My one critique of these tests is I feel like I get different answers depending on how hungry I am when I take the test. And I'll give an example. So I think I usually come out Myers-Briggs INTP, right? And then the one, Marcus, you mentioned there, the 4 quadrants one, I think there's different colors that represent the quadrants. So I'm usually a yellow, which is kind of like, big picture thinker, quite jovial, like talking to people, talking about big ideas. But I know for a fact that when I'm hungry, I'm red. I'm like, let's go, let's get it done, move the fudge out of my way. So that's my only beef with these kind of questionnaires. It's like, if I'm hungry, the results are very skewed.
Do you know what I think? I think that they are really useful. I used to have a manager in the past, and we all as a team used to struggle with them, and this was a long time ago, because they would react really badly to a certain type of, like, it wasn't even really a challenge, it was just like they would sort of divvy out the work where the work was going to be done and stuff, and then as a team we would kind of like go, oh, actually, do you know what, that like meeting's been moved to a different office, so would it make sense if, like, 2 of us swapped over and I did that one and they did that one, and if you went to them with this type of suggestion of a improvement to something that happened based on, not like, it wasn't no one was saying like you've done anything bad or anything, it was just like, oh, this has changed, so this just makes sense. They get really like riled up about it. And when we did this personality profile stuff, and one of the sort of like odd quirks of their particular blend of personalities feels very attacked when presented with logical change to proceedings. And actually it was really transformative, because all of us in the team were just like, we don't understand why they react like this when we go to them with something. And it would then be that sort of like kind of passive aggressive questioning of like, well, why do you need to do this? What changes? Like, what's this? There's some cynical reason behind why you're making this, why you're trying to make these adjustments, when actually it was all purely for the good of the team. There was no one was trying to fiddle anything or make anyone's life difficult at the expense of anybody else. It was literally just like, this just makes sense, could we do this? Just wanted to let you know, really. It wasn't even really out of once we kind of got this piece of information, it actually really helped with all of us interacting with them, because we could phrase it in a slightly different way, which kind of made it less challenging and not something that they ever would have thought of without that type of intervention. So I do think they definitely have their uses.
Yeah, it's really useful, particularly in teams like in tech companies, for example. Like when I worked at Capitalize, naturally you have a very different set of personalities in customer success and sales than you do in engineering. And often with those kind of understanding how to give feedback and how to kind of talk and interact with one another can be quite challenging, unless you kind of really are kind of close friends with them, for example. But as you get bigger, that becomes harder. And we did the HBDI one with the color quadrants, and basically put our 2 dominant colors in our profile picture and our Slack. So when we're communicating with another person, you kind of knew how best to frame that conversation that would land best with them. And that worked really well for us. I think that's probably one of the best things we did in the firm. That's why I always think about it now for myself. It's good to be aware of it for yourself, but more so for others, and how best to approach that. Because like you say, you can get these really odd responses and not really know why. I think it's a personal thing, but it's just a framing of an objective they didn't really like or didn't land well.
I used it for my team for motivation. We had some projects that are kind of slacking, and I was like, everyone's volunteered to be on this team to do this project. For some reason, the pace is slowing down. And as you say, like finding out people's drivers for doing things is very helpful. So again, making sure that analytical people get given the analytical tasks, making sure the people who like to talk big picture get the chance to talk big picture. Because I can't remember which study it was, but essentially there comes a point for everybody, right, no matter how much you earn, big or small, where you're no longer motivated by money. Where like you could give someone a 10K pay increase and it won't make a difference to their productivity because they work harder, they're already working the hours they need to work. So it's finding that what motivates them, and you as a leader can't actually really motivate people that much. You've got to find out what motivates them, and that's where the personality things came in, making sure people have got the right kind of tasks or stage of the project. So yeah.
Nice. It's good. It's just understanding your team, just like we do for our customers, right? It's like there's a lot more to it than just the straightforward. They want to do a good job, or they want to get paid. There's obviously a lot more drivers in that than what is often that obvious. Same as customer success in a way, right? Is that you kind of have that. You think it's because they really want to use your software. Fun fact: nobody buys software because they enjoy using software. They want to solve. Yeah,
who knew?
They use software to save time from a manual process they don't want to do, like the washing machine. I talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
My granny said to me when she moved to this country, the washing machine was not ubiquitous, and the idea the washing machine was sold to us to save time. She's like, Dale, you've all got washing machines now. Why are you all still so busy? Good question, Granny. She's wisdom. Sorry. First of all, check us out. Gentlemen, we talked about business and work stuff in a very professional manner for a good 10-15 minutes. I'm proud of us. I'm proud of myself. Marcus.
Yes.
Customer success. You actually mentioned it in the comment for this post. Yeah. What would you like to discuss, good sir?
I suppose it's more just, I suppose there's a lot of chat about things like customer success, when I think a lot of time it just becomes a bit of like an account management type thing.
I was going to say, can I ask, because I've been doing a bit of research on this and stuff internally, like what is your, because it is a catch-all job title, customer success, and it ranges from support on one end all the way through implementation up to like pure sales on the other end. Like where do you think it works best? How do you define it?
It's a good question. I think it depends on the objective. I more see it as more of an approach as opposed to a function. And I think a lot of that is down to, because I definitely believe in like customer success led sales, which again is another bundle of buzzwords that you could probably say, but it's more about really understanding why that client is using your product and what they're actually looking to get from using that, and then working towards that. And it's not necessarily about they want to, like, saving time is probably like a tear down, but you probably haven't gone deep enough if you've just got to time. There's always those kind of three things: time, money, whatever. But there's more to it than that. You want to save time because you want to focus on other services. You want to drive a better profitability because you want to hire more staff. There's always an underlying objective in a lot of things. We had that things like AML, for example. You want to tidy up your processes because the team are not enjoying it. And every time you do these processes, the team hate that part of their job. So part of it is that. So it's understanding that and then working them towards that end point, whether it be through tech touches, through like email campaigns and bits like onboarding workflows and stuff, or if it's just jumping on a call with a client and helping them get to the next stage of that process. And that happens not just on what I do, that's product as well, being aware of how to build a product in a way that drives that objective, marketing, making sure you're talking about that problem, the solution, the kind of awareness levels that client might be at the whole way through that process. It's that understanding of your product isn't why they're here. It's the objective.
I like that.
Yeah. I have nothing of value to add to that. That was on point. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It feels like another clip. That'll be another nice clip for Marcus after the show.
Yeah. Tony, I think it's time for the coffee question.
The coffee question. Okay. Do you drink coffee?
I do.
Good. So if we can all agree that sort of local artisan coffee shop is like the A1 outcome that we would like when choosing our coffee when we're out and about. If you are stuck and you can't access said artisan, local, nice coffee, fair trade jobby, what is your go-to coffee chain, and what is the one that you would put in the bin if you could?
Oh, okay. That is a good question. Go-to coffee, yeah. I mean, it depends what your class is, the kind of boutique ones, but the coffee chain, I know Dale's a Costa guy, right? From what I recall.
If I have to go to a chain, yes, Costa.
Yeah, I'm probably that. I do find a lot of their drinks quite milky compared to everyone else's. But I do quite like it. The ratios are slightly off, but it's nice. I love a mocha from Costa because there's literally one about 10 minutes from my house, 10-minute walk. So I'll go there probably more than I should. So it's probably going to be Costa, although I do prefer the taste of Starbucks more so. And then Nero, if you're feeling like you want to get stuff done, I feel like Nero is oddly stronger than the rest. So I think that Nero is the one that I'd go to if I was out and about. So yeah, I'm pretty universal really for the most part. But in terms of good coffee shops, sorry to interrupt, Tony, there's one in Shoreditch, if you ever go to that part of town, called Ozone, if it's still there. Quality. I quite like black, no sugar coffee, like quite strong. And that stuff in there is real nice.
Yeah. That's how I like my coffee too, black and bitter, like me.
Yeah. Or I treat myself to a mocha if I'm feeling a little bit.
So you'd have been up in the Strawberry Hills drinking the Jamaican Blue Mountain when you visited Jamaica for your 30th birthday.
I wasn't there, but I did drink the Blue Mountain coffee.
I always remember the guy telling us that there was a house up there, and he was quite sort of serious, the guide, and he was like, "See that house back there?" And he was, I think if they owned it or if they stayed there, but he was like listing off some of the people that had been there, and he was like, yada yada yada. And he was like, Tom Cruise, an actual Snoop Dogg. Yeah, that was good coffee. I like that. Lucy Cohen raised the excellent side quest in this goal as well, which was McDonald's coffee, which we all agreed with a good head shake was very good value for money.
Oh, absolutely.
Despite it being like machine. They don't do decaf though. So if you are with somebody that needs decaf because they are pregnant, or like our previous guest, Owen, can't drink caffeine because of health reasons, then it is slightly limiting because they don't offer that.
I dabble in decaf. I think it's good. I do it because I'd end up just abusing it otherwise. I kind of need a period of sort of break and just to sort of sensitize myself back to the levels of caffeine that I'm typically consuming. So I end up going for a phase where I'm constantly really hot and really wired in what I'm doing, and then don't realize I've consumed like 9 coffees in that day, and it's probably a little bit too much.
That's actually a good question. Like consumption levels wise, like what is peak optimum? Like what do you if you ignore like when you're at a conference and you drink 6 coffees because you can't find any water?
They're the worst ones.
Yeah. What
I'd probably say, in an ideal world, you don't really want to drink anything past sort of like lunchtime, sort of 1 o'clock, really, because I find anything then you're still wired after work and your sleep's always a little bit off. I've got a Whoop band, but purely for the purpose of sleep, really. And I find there's definitely a big correlation between me having loads of coffee and me having a terrible night's sleep.
I thought you were going to say I have to have a Whoop band to regulate my coffee intake. It starts going off, right? I need to stop.
Kind of is, but the heart rate's really high. But yeah, I'd probably say 4 is probably a good amount. Maybe you're probably in the slightly upper end, but yeah, 4 before 1 p.m. is probably where I do a lot of that. But I have taken a little bit of a break recently, probably the last couple of months, of predominantly drinking decaf, just to try and I'll be honest, the difference has been quite significant, where I feel like I've been sleeping better, energy's more consistent throughout the day as well. I don't tend to spike that much. So yeah, I definitely would recommend having a little bit of a break to reset that tolerance level for caffeine.
Do you know, it's an interesting one because like, who was I talking to about this a little while ago? So I had, when I was in my must have been like early 20s, I went on like a massive like weight loss crash diet, like when I was about 21, because I put on a load of weight and I was like, right, I got like obsessive with it and like just was like, oh, what's the next thing I can give up to improve my lifestyle, because I've lost 4 stone, I'm being all holy and virtuous. And so I decided to give up caffeine, not for no real reason. I'm not really sure why I did it. I was just like, I just want to see what happens. So I gave up caffeine and then went on holiday, and we were in Sicily, and I hadn't had any caffeine at all for about 3 months, and then decided that at lunchtime I would have 1 espresso, because I fancied one and I hadn't drunk one for a while, and I drank that espresso and I was still awake at 5 o'clock in the morning the following time. And you suddenly realize like what an incredibly powerful stimulant caffeine is when you're not desensitized to it because you drink it. So I always think like it is sensible to maintain some level of intake, because otherwise you can find yourself like, oh, I just have a coffee because you're in, like, yeah, and actually it's insanely powerful stuff.
That's when you hop into Costa though and get one that's been sort of cut down with a little bit of milk and takes the edge off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What about you, Dale? What's your? Because I have like 2, sometimes 3, but always sort of try to be before midday. And if it's after that, because I fancy one, it will always be a decaf.
For me, coffee's a treat. I'll have maybe 3 a week.
Oh,
and like you guys, I can't have it after a certain point of time, but I still like the taste of coffee, so I do have decaf at home. And if I fancy having one at like 3 o'clock, it will be a decaf. But I treat coffee as a treat.
We're also rock and roll, aren't we?
Similar to you, I did have, I won't say, no, I must have had an addiction, and the reason why I had an addiction was because I remember detoxing a couple of years back and stopping coffee cold turkey and having literal withdrawal symptoms. I mean, I had cold flu symptoms for like a day or 2. I shook a little bit and I had a banging headache, and I was like, if I feel this way just because I've stopped taking it or drinking after a day or two, that means I'm having too much. So no, for me, coffee is now a treat.
I won't coffee shame this person because they are somebody that I work quite closely with, and by their own admission, drink far too much coffee. And they're like at a sort of a coffee per meeting, and they're in like meetings pretty much all day, every day. It's just like not uncommon for 10 to go down. It's like.
I had a colleague I once worked with who said that like coffee, and then we found out whenever this person made coffee, like if they made it at home or in the office, like, they'd have like 6 teaspoons of sugar in it. It's like, you don't like coffee, you like sugar. Like, there's a huge difference. But they also had at least 3 or 4 a day, and we're like, you're having 6 sugars in each, and you're having 3 a day. That's a ton of sugar. That's a ton of sugar.
I'm going to get told off for this, but I'll say it because Kaylee's teas are honestly the same color as my notepad. They are the palest things you've ever seen in your life. Yeah. Not necessarily sugar. She's probably not so bad on that, but milk. Like you don't even squeeze a tea bag. It's like some really like just about cloudy water with some milk in it.
See, this is what we want. We want the inside scoops. We want the stuff that's going to get you in trouble. It also means Kaylee's got to come back now and dish the dirt on you. So we've now teed her up to be on the show. Thank you for that.
She's been there quite a few times, hasn't she? She did quite a few of you right at the start. Well, I say at the start, but when you were doing the
so this is open to debate because Mr. Sundin claims he's been on the most as a guest, and I think I agree with him. And the difference is when Kaylee's been on, these have been debate episodes that are not FM episodes. They've not been on a Wednesday and then on different days and different times. So she's made more appearances with me online, but actual episodes, I think Mr. Sundin.
Goalposts steady, Dale.
It'd be really fun to do, like the Mr. and Mrs. where we like ask Marcus all the same questions that we ask Kaylee, and then do like an FM episode of that before you guys. That'd be really funny, wouldn't it? Or not?
Yeah,
let's wait till they're married first, then do that. Let's let's wait for that, and then
yeah. I'm pretty sure we do. I'm pretty confident we did well.
Yeah. When's the wedding?
It's not been fully booked yet, but I won't quote dates because I'd like to get it wrong. But
in the future,
18 months time,
roughly. Yeah, cool.
Roughly.
Cool. Don't forget to take pictures for LinkedIn, by the way. I know it's a very personal, intimate day, but you've got to post it on LinkedIn.
Yeah, it wouldn't. It's not LinkedIn. It didn't happen.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
You've been very hospitable and answered lots of silly questions. Do you have any questions for Tony and I?
Ooh. So it's rule number 1, isn't it? It's like an interview, isn't it? You always got to have questions to ask back, and I didn't come prepared.
You don't have to ask questions. You can just chill. We can sit in silence for the next 3 minutes. The viewers can just watch us in silence.
Yeah, that'd be terrible. I'd
enjoy it.
What's one thing you're not enjoying about the industry at the minute? What's one thing that you're kind of like observing? You're quite excited about or into at the moment, or just enjoy? Try and bring it back to positivity. I was going to say what do you hate, but we'll keep it away from that.
So many things. I hate so many things, Mark.
Yeah, let's do like
so much hatred and loathing and detesting emanates from me, but I hide. I keep it locked in for the sake of everyone else.
Really well, like so locked in. No one would know.
I'm almost Sith level. Like I can feel the dark side calling me, and I want to sup upon that power. Yes, Palpatine. Sorry, let me answer your question. What is exciting me about the industry? I'm now seeing genuine AI applications within software. Everyone's been talking about it for the last couple of years, and I'm actually seeing people actually using it. I was on a call with Ghetts yesterday, and they showed me some of their stuff, and I was like, that's a practical application. Also, I don't get paid for this. I'm going to give a shout out to Blue Jay. They've got like a system that's like a tax advisory system. I was like, I can see how that works for the day-to-day. Everyone's been talking about it, but I've been like, what are the practical applications? They're the few things I've seen that actually seem to like they're going to work.
Nice.
There's others, and I forgot to mention them. Shout out to Free Agent. Tony, over to you.
That's a good question. So I think that something that is happening in our world, which I have a sort of like side quest interest in, is the sort of idea of like creators in our world becoming like kind of mainstream, I guess, to some extent. And I remember getting asked this question a couple of years ago by one Rob Brown about like what trend I thought would proliferate over the next couple of years, and this was one that I said I thought would happen. And it's just nice to see like that. So James Ashford was doing it for a long time, right? Of like really sort of professional production of, you know, what his thoughts were on stuff. And I really like James. I don't know him, but just liked the way that he brought stuff into our world from outside of our world and turned it into something that was useful and meaningful. And I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but you know, he's very slick in what he delivers and consistent with his message. And I like, yeah, I really like people like Jason Statz, who've just sort of taken that thing and just kind of gone nuts with it, really, and I start to see the followings and the rewards that that they deserve off the back of it, you know, and to see you know, people like Rachel and her name's dropped out of my head.
Grace?
No, yes, Grace, but not Grace. The Elent. Abigail, and stuff, and like just all the cool things they're doing around like being prime ministers and, you know, taking that sort of stuff mainstream. I really like that. I think it's nice to see like the accounting and sort of finance world connecting with the business world through that platform, which I think is really cool.
Ooh, one more from me. I just realised one thing I'm really liking and seeing is bookkeepers / accounting firms producing their own tech. So again, shout out to Lucy Cohen doing her own thing. Had Tim Chilston on a few months back, well, actually half a year ago. And again, bookkeeping practice based in Guernsey. Is it Guernsey or Jersey? Somewhere different. That's it. And he talked about building his own system for certain things, which I find very exciting.
It's where I think it's where some of the best tech comes from. Like, I think that's naturally where Engager came from, right? With Andy putting that together at Wainwright's, and then even Samson and Fielding, they've built Accounting Flow, which is a new price management software. They're
going to be on in a few months. Ben's going to come on. So,
there you go.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, it's a really cool one coming out.
I do like that trend in some ways when it's done well. It does worry me because the bad version of that is there's already something out there that's way better than the thing, but I don't want to pay for it, so I'm going to hire a solitary developer to build something internal, build a business based on something that's not great. And then that person then leaves, or, you know, as a pivot or whatever, and then they kind of get stuck with this legacy system that is just So like, I know the whole sort of like built by accountants for accountants things turned into a bit of a meme, and, you know, maybe rightly so. I do think that people should think long and hard about building their own software when there's good stuff already out there. Like it can be very successful, and like, you know, Engager is a really, really good example of that kind of thing. But I do often think that it's really hard to build good software, and it's really hard to get people to use it and pay you for using it. And like that should not be taken lightly as a decision to, you know, I agree with you. I think there's some cool stuff out there, but I definitely would urge people to take some serious thought about it before there's a road that they go down building their own stuff. You really need to have the right people behind you and really understand what is involved in building software and getting people to use it.
I agree.
Jumping in the comments, sorry, Kirsty St. John and Emma James and Stuart Chapman building with Otto.
Yeah, spot on. That's a really good bit of kit. And then the people that use it absolutely love that thing. They're sort of it's bank rec, isn't it? Their focus.
Yeah, and there's Jonathan Gaunt with Socket, and like you said, Engager. There was a couple of ones that had dropped into my head. I don't know it's quite this road, but Archie. Is it Archie? There's another one that's doing. It's like a AI agent that's going to be fed with like the account.
Is that the ex-Carbon guys thing?
McLeod, I think his name is.
Yeah, I think he's with the CEO. He's the founder of Carbon, I think.
Yes, Carbon. I think he's Next Zero. He's moved over to the UK. I don't know him, but that looks like quite an interesting, like prospect of something that is an application of AI that, you know, seems like it's being deeply considered and stuff. There is a bunch of stuff. What's the guy? Tax Torch, is that it? Robert Davidson is another one that's being done. Like there is some cool stuff. Fresh Pay as well is another one. Shout out to Jenny and the gang. Like there's a bunch of cool stuff out there, but when it's done well and it's done as its own project, and it works well. But it's worth giving it some serious consideration before you embark on that road, because it's going to be very expensive and challenging.
Definitely worth dabbling with the no-code stuff like Zapier and stuff first, and just see what you can kind of like MVP using some of that stuff, and then maybe move forward developing something if you get excited.
I'm not a huge fan of no-code, low-code.
Should we save that for another episode?
Let's do why Dow hates no-code for the next one.
Hate is a strong word.
Marcus's third appearance.
Oh yeah. Also, we're thinking about doing like some kind of like an award, by the way, or like a token for veterans of the show. Like, how would you feel about like maybe like an FM badge, Marcus?
A little enamel pin. That would be lovely.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. That you can just like, boast, like, you've been a supporter or been on the show so many times.
Absolutely. As long as it has both your faces on it.
Well, first of all, I think I need to get a logo. Definitely not our faces. Probably get like a logo design, like just FM in a really cool style.
Nice.
I don't know, something like that.
The logo could have Dale's flat top on, like the shape of Dale's face with F. That's
a terrible idea, because I'm thinking I might not keep the flat top. It's effort. It's maintenance and effort, and I cannot be bothered.
Oh, really?
Well, I've got to get it trimmed at least every 2 weeks minimum, and this actually requires styling in the morning, and I hate having to do that kind of stuff. I genuinely hate it. Fair. Looks good though. I'm going to hit end stream. We talked about my hair. Let's roll out. We're done. Thank you for joining us, Marcus. It's been